By 1860, the United States operated as a severely divided nation, functioning as two incompatible worlds sharing a single, deeply strained border. In the North, an industrial machine was accelerating. Factories and expansive trade networks drove the economy, powered by a rapidly growing free labor workforce of 22 million people. Below that border, a sprawling agrarian empire operated on a completely different model. With a population of around 9 million, the South dominated global markets, producing an astonishing 3/4 of the world's cotton supply. That staggering agricultural output, and the entire societal order that supported it, relied entirely on the forced labor of approximately 4 million enslaved people. Southern leaders viewed this brutal institution as an absolute necessity for their survival. To them, the labor system was a constitutionally protected property right, and the non-negotiable bedrock of their wealth. Meanwhile, a growing abolitionist movement in the North looked at that exact same system and condemned it as a profound moral abomination, entirely at odds with the nation's stated ideals of liberty. The nation was locked in a collision between two mutually exclusive economies. Policymakers could compromise on tax rates or tariffs, but compromising on the moral and economic reality of human bondage proved impossible. The conflict ignited when the country began pushing west. Every time a new territory sought statehood, a fierce political battle erupted over whether that new state would permit or ban slavery. Southern politicians fiercely defended the concept of states' rights. This was a specific legal argument used to demand that individual states could maintain and expand the institution of slavery without federal interference. This map shows the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Lawmakers drew a geographic boundary, attempting to permanently separate free and slave regions. But after acquiring massive new Western territories following the Mexican-American War, the old boundaries failed, forcing Congress to draft the Compromise of 1850. That 1850 agreement included a highly controversial concession called the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Act was a law that legally compelled citizens, even those in free states, to actively assist in the capture and return of escaped enslaved people. By legally forcing individuals in the North to enforce the South's slave economy, these political agreements only deepened the country's moral fracture. 4 years later, the Kansas-Nebraska Act abandoned the idea of a fixed geographical line entirely. It introduced popular sovereignty, which was the idea that residents of a territory, rather than Congress, should decide whether slavery would be allowed there. This local voting immediately sparked bloody clashes between pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers. Then came a devastating legal blow in 1857. In the Dred Scott decision, the Supreme Court ruled that Black people could not be American citizens. The court went even further, declaring that Congress had no authority to prohibit slavery in the Western territories, effectively greenlighting its unchecked expansion across the continent. By 1859, the conflict spilled over from the courts into armed rebellion. Abolitionist John Brown led a desperate raid on Harper's Ferry, attempting to incite a massive slave uprising in the South. Though the raid failed, it validated the deepest fears of Southern leaders, convincing them that Northern radicalism and aggression were imminent threats to their lives and property. Heading into 1860, every political and legal framework designed to hold the country together had collapsed. The momentum toward outright war was now accelerating rapidly. The final breaking point arrived with the 1860 election of Abraham Lincoln, a Republican firmly opposed to the Western expansion of slavery. Even though Lincoln wasn't proposing the immediate end of slavery where it already existed, Southern states interpreted his victory as a direct existential threat to their sovereignty and their entire economic model. The fallout was immediate. Within weeks of the election, South Carolina formally seceded. 6 other states quickly dissolved their ties to the Union, forming the Confederate States of America before Lincoln was even sworn in. In April 1861, Confederate forces opened fire on the Union-held Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. Those shells ignited the armed conflict brewing for decades. The American Civil War did not begin by accident. It was the brutal, unavoidable collision of a nation trying to balance two fiercely irreconcilable ways of life.